Good afternoon. My name is Don Tomaskovic-Devey. I'm at University of Massachusetts, Amherst. I see there's a lot of old friends in the room and people I cite and whose research I really value, and I hope to start relationships with a new group of people today. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about, it's an advertisement for a new center, but it's also a kind of a conceptual notion of what works and a kind of an intervention. I've spent most of my career as a conventional academic, publishing conventional academic things, but I've had a second life working with the U.S. Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, which I find sometimes hopeful and many times really, really frustrating. And so that's the background. So the center here has been created by Lee Badgett and Fidan Kurtulis, who are both in economics at Umass Amherst, and myself, after basically about 5 years of trying to change the way the EEOC did its work and thought about academic research. In some ways, we've been successful. I won't tell you too much about that now. If you're interested, come and ask me. But one of the things we did is create enough trust that we now actually have access to their data. What the center is trying to do is build both a research portfolio and this is what I'm going to talk about today, a kind of a public-facing portfolio, sort of leveraging that relationship. So in general, we've got as a kind of, reflects that frustration, an argument that we need to move away from legal compliance approaches to diversity and bias and towards thinking about these as organizational processes and managerial responsibilities. Now, I've heard a lot of this in the room, but if you even think about the last conversation that we just had, there was a kind of a legal compliance versus kind of managerial tension in there. And so we're trying to do this both through the scientific route and then democratize what's going on. And I'm going to give you just kind of a high level, a medium level, and a low level example. So there's a website, and we've got data up there that you might be very interested in, and some reports. So the first argument we're making is that if you're going to worry about diversity or bias as a manager, you're going to do it the way managers do everything else. You're going to count and compare. You're going to think about outcomes and not just processes. The common kind of equal opportunity practices look something like this. We set some goals, we think about practices or processes, and then we get to legal compliance or self-satisfied, okay, we've done all that we're supposed to do. And this is not how real managerial practices normally work. How things normally work is you've got a product or profit, something that you're trying to do. You evaluate it, you adjust the process, and then you come back, right? And so that is, you have to count outcomes, not just processes, right? And if you're not counting the outcomes, if you're not worrying about, oh, how many sexual harassment complaints am I getting in this firm? And is it enough? Or what are the responses? Right? Or what does my turnover look like specifically in comparing various groups? Then you're not managing it. So that's the argument. So one of the things we're trying to, that's a high level argument. But we also think there's some kind of simple methodologies. This is the Department of Energy which is the Federal Department of Energy. This is the gender wage gap over time. You can see there's good news. It's going down. But we can also say where it's coming from. Is it because the Department of Energy hires men and women with different skills? Is it because they segregate them? Or is it something that happens face-to-face in the same job? These, from a scientific point of view, are really easy models to estimate. Right? Any employer can do this for themselves. We also want to kind of emphasize that it's not only kind of this self-analysis that's possible, but there's kind of comparisons. Silicon Valley tech firms have been under a lot of pressure around diversity issues, around gender and around race, in such a way that sometimes it seems impossible, right? That this is like a place where it's hard to move the needle. So one of the things that we did is we just compared the 200 largest Silicon Valley firms. It turns out there are some that are much worse than the average, which is pretty bad. But it also turns out There are some that are quite better. And so we can be thinking about that. There's internal models of successful firms. And then last, like everyone else, we'll talk about sexual harassment for a moment. So as I walk away, the key thing to take away on sexual harassment is the EEOC actually treats it more seriously than other forms of segregation, and the employers are extraordinarily harsh with women who make sexual harassment charges. That's the data.